Hey friends, let's make some good old buttermilk biscuits. We're going to start off by using 2 cups of White Lily self-rising flour, and I do recommend White Lily self-rising flour. No other flour will do for me when it comes to making biscuits. Now, I'm not promoting White Lily, and I'm not getting paid by White Lily to tell you these things. This is just my personal preference. Then once we've got 2 cups of self-rising flour, make sure it's exactly 2 cups. We're going to add some fat to this. And what I added was Crisco. And if I had to guess, I'd say about a 1/3 cup of Crisco. Don't hate on me for using Crisco. To each his own, you do you. But you can use lard, you can use Crisco, you can use butter, you can even use bacon grease in biscuits. And that's really good, by the way. But you're going to cut that lard into your flour until it's smaller than a pea. So about pea-sized, it's going to look like this. And because I know my flour is a little old, I haven't made biscuits in a while, I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of baking powder to this. And the reason you do that is because your flour loses its rising agent after about 6 months. So that's why a lot of times you'll see people add the baking powder or baking soda to their self-rising flour. And you even want to check the date on your baking powder to make sure it's not out of date, because they won't rise as well if it's out of date. Now we're going to add 3/4 cup of buttermilk. Always make sure you shake up your buttermilk before you add it to your recipe. And then we are just going to mix this together, just like this. At this point, you may need to add more buttermilk if your dough is not sticky, wet. And so I did. I added maybe 2 more tablespoons of buttermilk, if I had to guess. So you're going to use anywhere from 3/4 cup to 1 cup of buttermilk in this recipe. Then we're going to give this a mix, and don't worry if it's not all sticking together and it looks like this. It is going to stick together once you put it down on your surface to roll them out. And I don't use my countertop a lot when I'm making biscuits unless I'm making more than a skillet full. I like to use this platter that I purchased at Kroger's. I get asked a lot, where did you get that platter? I got this at Kroger's and I love it. I bought 3 of them. Then you're going to take about 1/4 cup of self-rising flour, drop it down onto your surface, spread it out, make sure you coat your rolling pin and your biscuit cutter and also your hands with the flour. Then we're just going to drop our dough ball right onto the floured surface. And this is what I like to do. I just take it, pick it up, keep turning it around till I get the entire dough ball lightly covered in flour. And then once you've got it covered in flour, we're just going to flatten it out. And with buttermilk, I find it's a little bit stickier, so you're going to have to keep some flour on your hands the first few times you do this. So we're going to take and we're going to fold this. Just like that. And you can see it's still sticky. That's okay. We're going to flatten it out again. Fold it again. And you'll do this about 3 times. And you'll have to spread out the flour underneath it the first couple of times. And about the 3rd time, it's not as sticky. Spread your flour out again, and then we're just going to drop it down, and we are going to roll out some biscuits. And I rolled these about 1 inch thick. That's typically what I like to do, about 1 inch thick. You can use a cup, you can use a tin can. I suggest poking holes in the top of that tin can or cutting the other end out. Or you can simply use a biscuit cutter. They're very inexpensive, but try not to twist it when you cut them. And this is why, especially with a tin can or a cup, it's going to seal those edges and they're not going to rise as well. Also, if you'll take those biscuits once you've cut them out and you'll just put them in your hand and just flip them back and forth, you'll get the excess flour off of them. And if you're new to making biscuits, at the end, sometimes you end up with a large biscuit, sometimes you end up with a baby biscuit. Just throw it in there. Sometimes I end up without a biscuit because I cut them too thick. It all depends on how thick you cut them. When I make buttermilk biscuits, I like to put a little bit of the buttermilk on top. So we're just going to put just a little bit of buttermilk on top of each one. Now in the oven we go. We've preheated our oven to 425 degrees and we're going to set our timer for 15 minutes. And here's a little behind the scene for you. I get flour everywhere when I make biscuits, y'all. Okay, after 15 minutes I checked them. They weren't brown. So what I did was cut on my broiler. It's that simple. I didn't want to keep cooking them until they were brown because they would be too tough. And voila, they're ready to be served. And I thought I was cutting this open in front of the camera, but I'm a little catty-wampered there. But you can still see how it opens up really well. And I'm about to go put a tomato on that biscuit. Y'all, they're so good.